Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with TB Fork, and this is day 18 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be beef liver, and today is a legs and abs training routine. And the theme for today's workout is CRAC PNF stretching. So right now, I'm going to be demonstrating how to perform CRAC PNF stretching. Now let's get started. And while we are resting, let's continue with our CRAC PNF demonstration. We've already done the posterior fibers and the lateral and medial fibers of the hip. So now what we're going to do is we are going to focus on the medial rotators of the hip. And the first one, what we want to do is we are going to focus on the medial rotators at 30 degrees of hip flexion. So what we would do is flex the hip to 30 degrees, couple different hand options. One, we could just go ahead, place one hand on the foot, and with the other hand, we could place it at the medial condyle of the femur. And then for this one, if we're stretching the medial rotators, we want to take them into lateral rotation. So what we would do is lift, lean back, and then they would inhale, contract by pressing the knee into us, so they would contract, and then exhale, drop your knee down toward the floor, and they would actively go into abduction and lateral rotation. And then as an added bonus, you could just gently assist them. For this one, because we are pinning the foot, aside from just doing lateral rotation, they're also going to be going into abduction. If we wanted to isolate the rotators, what we could do is change our hand positioning. So with an underhand grip, you could take one hand at the distal femur, one hand underneath the calf, and then we would do the same thing. So we would lift and lean, and this way we're just getting pure lateral rotation to just stretch the medial rotators. And same thing, we would just say inhale and push to rotate your leg in, and they would actively go into medial rotation. Exhale, turn your leg out, or you can instruct them to bring their the medial malleolus of the ankle up toward the sky, and they would actively go into lateral rotation. And then if you want, you can just gently assist them a little bit more. When we are focusing on medial rotation at 30 degrees, or the medial rotators of the hip at 30 degrees, primarily we are going to be stretching the gluteus medius, specifically the anterior fibers, because the anterior fibers are responsible for medial rotation. We are also going to be stretching the anterior fibers of the gluteus minimus and the tensor fasciae lati, or TFL muscle. We're also going to be getting a little bit of the adductor longus and the pectineus in this position. And then the next one, what we want to do is the same thing, but we are going to flex the hip to 60. So we're stretching the medial rotators at 60 degrees of hip flexion. So for this one right over here, you'd roughly get them 90 degrees at the knee. And then the hand positioning is going to be the same. We could do for one, just anchor the foot. So we're going to go on the dorsal surface of the foot. The opposite arm, we're going to go and we're going to cup the medial condyle of the femur. We're going to lift, lean, and take them into lateral rotation and abduction, and then instruct the patient. Inhale, push your knee into me. They would inhale, contract. Exhale, drop your knee down toward the floor, and they themselves would actively go into abduction and lateral rotation. And then if you want, as an added bonus, again, you could just gently guide them a little bit more for a little bit of assistance. If you want to just isolate the rotators and not get the abduction involved, then what we could do is with an underhand grip. So once again, we would just go underneath the tibia and fibula. With the other hand, we would grip at the distal femur. And then what we could do is lift and then rotate our body to take them into lateral rotation to stretch the medial rotators, and then instruct them. Inhale, turn your leg in, and they would actively go into medial rotation. And then exhale, turn your leg out, and they would actively try to go into lateral rotation. And again, as an added bonus, if you want, you could just gently guide them and give them a little bit of assistance to go into lateral rotation. When we are focusing on the medial rotators at 60 degrees of hip flexion, primarily we're going to be targeting the gluteus medius. And once again, we're going to be targeting the anterior fibers. The more we go into flexion, the more of the anterior fibers we're going to hit, because the gluteus medius, the anterior fibers, are more and more involved the more into hip flexion we get. Same thing with the gluteus minimus. We're going to be targeting the anterior fibers as well as the tensor fasciae lati, or TFL muscle. And then some other muscles that are going to be involved in this position are going to be the adductor longus. We're going to be getting a little bit of the adductor longus. We're going to be getting some minimal stretch in the adductor brevis as well. And then for the piriformis, we might be getting a little bit of stretch in the piriformis. Again, the piriformis reverses its action from lateral rotator to medial rotator and abductor, somewhere between 60 to 90 degrees of hip flexion. So at 60 degrees, we might be getting a little bit of piriformis action, depending on the morphology of the patient. But our rest period is up. Time for set number 2. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.